during this training, so we'll drop a Google link for everybody to, like, input their names, and it will be time bound. So if you can't input your name within that time limit, so you are not you didn't attend the program. So we want full participation, and the attendance requirement is 70%. Rule 3, opportunity for advancement. Outstanding participants from this module will be selected to join the upcoming research academy. Selection will be based primarily on consistent attendance and active engagement. Rule 4, communication protocol. All important updates will be shared through this group chat. If you anticipate being absent or have any urgent concern, please inform the program coordinator or designated contact person ahead of time. So if you have anything you want to do or you'll be absent, you can inform the program coordinator, or you can just drop it on the group chat. Then Rule 5, code of conduct. Participants are expected to maintain a high standard of professionalism throughout the module. This includes being punctual for meetings, respectful in all communications, and adherence to the collaborative and inclusive value of standing committee on capacity building. And please, when you join the video call, please check if you are muted. So please, it is important when you join, you check if you are muted. So without wasting much time, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. Is in person of Oluwatimilehin Oladapo. Oluwatimilehin Oladapo is a fifth-year medical student at the University of Ibadan with a strong passion for neuroscience, global health, infectious disease, epidemiology, and research. He is known for his dedication to promoting ethical and impactful research among medical students. Today, he will be guiding us through the fundamentals of research with a focus on understanding academic integrity and avoiding plagiarism, a topic that is incredibly important for researchers, especially in the medical field. Please, everybody, join me in welcoming Oluwatimilehin Oladapo as he takes us into this important training section. Oluwatimilehin Oladapo, you are welcome.
All right. Thank you very much for our introduction. Please, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, Oluwatimilehin Oladapo. I'm the president of the College Research and Innovation Hub Ibadan, which is a student-led research organization. I'm also the head of the University of Ibadan Medical Students Association Research Committee, and it is my pleasure to be here today to speak to us all on research and plagiarism. So I would like to start by thanking the directors of VIMSA, SCORI, and SCOCB, Standing Committee on Capacity Building, Standing Committee on Research Exchange, for putting together this research model. And I'm quite optimistic about the potential benefits that would accrue to members and participants of this research training. It is really important and very encouraging that programs like this have been organized by student associations such as NIMSA, and trainings like this tend to form the basis or platform from which new students are new to research are able to launch their research careers and also access opportunities along the way. So kudos to the organizers for making this possible. So I would like to share my screen so we can get into the presentation proper. Okay. All right, I will be sharing my screen soon. But I would like to ask a question from the moderator. So during the course of my presentation, sorry about that. So during the course of my presentation, we'll be having some little short quizzes along the way. Is there a way for members to respond to those questions or those quizzes they see displayed on the screen?
Yes, actually drop it in the chat box. And if you want them to speak, they can actually unmute themselves and speak.
Okay, because the thing is when I'm sharing my screen, I'll be off Telegram, so I might not be able to. So I would appreciate that assistance with that. So I'll be sharing my screen now.
Okay, so
All right, you can see my screen here. Can you see my screen?
yeah,
All right, I'll be sharing my slide now. All right. Okay. Okay. Can we see my screen, please?
yes, sir.
All right. So I'll be giving us a brief um, introduction to research, and before we move into plagiarism proper, this is the outline for today's presentation. So I understand that in a gathering like today, we will have several categories of students. We have some people who have heard about research, who have never done anything about research, or have never attended any research training before. So I would assume that these categories of students are completely new to research, so you have no prior knowledge. And then there will be some of us that are fairly knowledgeable about research. Maybe we've attended some webinars before, or we've taken some online courses, or we've learned one or two things about research from YouTube videos. And those will be the second category of students. And the third category of students would be some people amongst us who are probably experienced already. Maybe you've worked on one or two research projects, you even have some publications already. This would be the third categories of students. So I prepared this presentation with these three different categories in mind. Um, I will start by briefly sharing my story, how I got into research as a 300 level medical student back then. So I got into my very first exposure to research was the Vertex Orb Research Bootcamp in 2022. That was August, September. I attended um, a 4 weeks research training. It was a boot camp where it taught us about several things regarding research, and that was how I was able to get my first exposure. And this boot camp actually culminated in a research project that led to my first paper in 2023. I attached a picture of the paper at the bottom of the screen. That's the reemergence of monkeypox virus outbreak. Then after that, I attended FAMSA's Commerce Research Training in 2023. That was also a very helpful training. I then decided to join College Research and Innovation of Ibadan in 2023 as an ordinary member because CRE actually actively engages medical students students in College of Medicine, University of Ibadan that are interested in research. So that is where I also got additional training in research methods and publications. After that, I continued to improve myself personally. I continued to work on projects, and then I became the IMSA Research Committee head in 2024. That was last year, and late last year, I also became CRE president in 2024. So this just shows my journey of how how my journey into research started. I didn't really know anything about research initially, like some of us here to this call. But then I started with just one boot camp. I think we paid 5,000 naira for that boot camp back then. I just really, really wanted to learn. So that's something we should all take note of. If you don't know anything about something, that desire to learn is what will keep on driving you, even when other people don't really seem to understand why you are taking this thing so seriously. So I knew research was something I really wanted to get into, and I just joined the boot camp. So those of us on today's call, I would like to assure you that you're making the right decision by joining trainings like this, because you keep on learning things over time, and then you just find yourself that like in 2 years from now you find yourself so knowledgeable about research, and that's because you put in the time and effort into attending trainings and getting as much knowledge as you get. It might be hard at first, but it's going to get clearer over time. And so, like I stated here, I've worked in several research projects since then. I've presented abstracts at local and international conferences, and I'm working on several research projects and supervising some. So you can start from being a student that doesn't know much to somebody that has publications and knows a lot about research. So that's just a brief glimpse of my story. And the picture here is one of me giving my induction speech. This was when I was inaugurated as president in 2024 December. So moving on, I'll first like to start with the importance of research. So why should you even care about research? The first is that it enhances evidence-based care. I would like to state that I sort of prepared this presentation with a slight bias for healthcare students, that's medical students, nursing students. So please forgive me if you are not a medical student, because many of my examples are healthcare related. So the importance of research, the first one is that it enhances evidence-based care. Our primary goals as medical doctors or medical practitioners is to provide care, optimal care to patients. However, there's something called evidence-based care. A lot of things we do in the hospital are should be backed by evidence, which is what evidence-based care means. And how do you get this evidence? Through research. And so, like I said here, research informs the development of clinical guidelines such as wool malaria protocols and treatment guidelines for tuberculosis. I think clinical students would understand that when you want to treat tuberculosis in patients, there are some drugs you have to give, like rifampicin, isoniazid, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol. And these four drugs are usually like the first line drugs. You give them for 2 months, and after 4 months, you stop pyrazinamide and ethambutol. So the whole summary of what I'm trying to say is that how did we come to know what kind of drugs to give for tuberculosis and for how long we should? It is through research. So this is number one. This is the first importance of research. It helps us to administer care to patients that is based on evidence. Then the second importance of research is that it enables us to fill knowledge gaps. The truth is that there is so much about this world that we do not know yet. I would like to give a story that you can see on the screen, which is regarding malaria and pregnancy complications. At some point, we began to notice, like people began to notice that women that were pregnant and were affected by malaria that was untreated tended to give birth to babies that were smaller than normal, so they had low birth weight. They also noticed that those children tend to die early. Yeah, so that was infant mortality. So those are the two things that they noticed that in pregnant women, in pregnant women or new mothers that gave birth to babies that were smaller than normal. They noticed that they usually had malaria in pregnancy that was not treated. So research was carried out to understand the link between malaria in pregnancy and giving birth to babies that were either that died, that stillbirth, or babies that had low birth weight. So it was research that enabled us to understand how malaria leads to these complications. And then we were not able to proffer solutions to the problem, like the use of insecticide treated nets for mothers, the use of these anti-malaria drugs that stated here, sulfadoxine, pyrimethamine, and then the use of targeted antenatal care for pregnant women. So there's usually this extra emphasis that is placed on pregnant mothers on preventing malaria, ensuring that you sleep underneath and all that. But there was a time when we didn't know that a pregnant woman having malaria can actually affect her baby. It was research that enabled us to understand this link. So that's one very beautiful importance of research. It is life-saving, literally, or it can be life-saving. Then, like I said here, a lot still remains unknown. There are still so many knowledge gaps that we need to fill. Examples, we know that mental health issues are growing. It's a growing concern amongst young people today in Nigeria. And we don't have data in Africa on mental health burden among youth. This is another area that we still need research on. Another research gap is cure for different cancers. There are a lot of research going on to find definitive cure for cancers, but we still do not have those cures. This is another gap that research can help fill, and I'm hoping that over time we'll eventually get definitive cures for different kinds of cancers. I think a 36-year-old footballer, Joe Thompson, recently died this week. He succumbed to cancer, unfortunately. And I was just thinking that if we had already gotten a definitive cure of cancer through research, that person wouldn't have died. And millions of lives that are being lost daily would be saved if we're able to find cure. But we can never find a cure if we don't invest our time and resources in research. This is why you should care about research as a person. Another example here is that African populations are generally underrepresented in genomic research. So another emerging field is that of medicine is precision medicine. It is the kind of medicine where instead of just giving everybody the same dosage of drug, you are targeting, you're administering treatment to people based on their unique genetic profile. Everybody is different. We all have different genetic makeups. So precision medicine is essentially trying to understand the person's genetic makeup and designing treatments that are unique to that person. That's what precision medicine is. But African populations, as us Africans, we are not represented in this research aimed at understanding the structure of our genomes in order to provide treatment for us. So that's another research gap that needs to be filled. So those examples are just to tell you that despite the fact that we've achieved a lot, there's still a lot we don't know. Another, please, am I still audible before I go on? I don't want to be talking without people hearing.
Yes, yes, you are.
All
Yes,
right,
you.
thank you. All right, thank you so much. So the third reason why you should care about research is it drives innovation. So during COVID-19 pandemic, that was in 2020, it was a very tough time. Millions of lives were actually lost to the COVID virus. However, there was a saving grace, which was COVID-19 vaccines. And before 2020, vaccines usually used to take a lot of years from the development of the vaccine before it is rolled out for public use. However, during that COVID-19 pandemic in 2020/2021, mRNA vaccines were a game changer. These mRNA vaccines were actually developed in a very, very short span of time, and they were rapidly rolled out to people to use. And it saved lives and prevented some deaths that would have happened if we didn't have mRNA vaccines. So, and there was no way that we would have had mRNA vaccines for COVID, if not for years, a lot of years of research that went into the technology of mRNA in making vaccines. So, this is another important part of research, the fact that it drives innovation. Other innovation, emerging innovation in medicine is AI in radiology. We also have robotic surgery as well. So, these are emerging fields in medicine that can only be possible because of research. Now, the fourth, and I think this will be the last reason why you should care about research, is that it improves your critical thinking skills. It also helps you to improve your writing and communication. So you'll notice that the more you engage in research, the better you become a better thinker. You're somebody that will start thinking about how to solve problems, how to provide solutions. You're somebody that will learn how to ask questions and find answers to questions. So another thing is that personally, if you are a researcher, like if you are a student and you get into research, it opens a lot of doors to scholarships, global fellowships, residency positions. That's for those that want to practice abroad. One thing they really, really value in students is students that are active in research in line with alongside academic success. I put this RSTMH here because if you have somebody that is actually active in research, one opportunity that a lot of young students can leverage on is the Royal Society for Tropical Medicine and Hygiene grants, early career grant. They give up to £5,000 every year to students, and a number of crew members have won this grant. These are opportunities that you can also access if you get into research. So yeah. So this is the first pop quiz of the day. I would like somebody to answer the question: which of these is generally not a reason students or doctors conduct research, considering everything I've said so far? Um, Improve patient care, advance knowledge, solve public health issues, boost personal ego. Can somebody provide an answer to this question? Which of this is of the options here is not really a reason why we conduct research as students or doctors?
Red Gem, you can speak.
To boost personal ego.
All right, please. What's your name again?
They have
Yeah.
made some people you can actually speak.
Oh, Ragnar.
All right. Thank you very much. So you are right. Boosting personal ego, as you can see on the screen, boosting personal ego is not the reason why we conduct research. So let's quickly move on to what research is. So research is a systematic way of asking and answering questions to create new knowledge. This is just a simple definition of research. If somebody asks you what is research, research is just basically a way, a systematic. You should always have systematic to it. It's a systematic way of asking and answering questions to create new knowledge. That means without questions, there is no research. So that's one thing I wanted to know. Central to research is the asking of questions. If there's anything you're going to take away from today's presentation, just know that there is no research without questions that need to be answered. Curiosity is at the root of research. That's why if you see the image I added in this presentation, it shows somebody thinking with a lot of question marks. That is what drives us researchers. We are very curious. And as a researcher, you should be very curious. You should have questions that you want to find answers to. Questions like, okay, why is it that despite the fact that we used to put on cigarette packs that smokers are liable to die young, why do people still smoke? Number one, that's a question you can ask. Number two is why is it that Africa is still underdeveloped despite the fact that Africa has a lot of resources? Those are questions that you can find out through research. Another question you can ask is why is it that despite the fact that a lot of women know that it is important for them to exclusively breastfeed their children for 6 months, why is it that some of them still do not do it? What's the reason why? So these are questions you can ask. Like there are a lot of questions that you can ask that can lead to you doing conducting research amongst yourself. So okay, some of the examples I give is number one: does smoking really cause lung cancer? Why do diabetic patients not use their drugs? Why do people who live in crowded areas, why are they likely to develop tuberculosis more often than people who live in less crowded areas? So these are questions you have to ask, and this is what leads to research. So research is basically all about asking and answering questions in a systematic manner. Then we'll quickly move on to types of medical research. This is an important segment I want us all to pay attention to, because all through your journey as a researcher, you will keep on encountering these terminologies, and it's important that you know the difference between the differences between the different types of research. The first is basic science research. So this kind of research is one that you conduct in the laboratory. It's also what we call bench-based research. If you see the example I gave here, for example, one very common animal that is used for research is the Drosophila melanogaster. I know some of us would have come across this organism in our biology in secondary school. The fly is also known as the fruit fly. It is used to study how, for example, Drosophila melanogaster, rather, they have been used to study how genes control embryonic development in humans. So let me zoom in on this 10 facts about fruit fly. If you look at number 3, they said fruit flies share around 75% of disease-causing genes with humans. This is why we use fruit flies for research, because they are very similar. They have a very, very similar genetic structure with humans. So in essence, what I'm saying is that basic science research is also research that you see students doing in the laboratory. Maybe they are trying to extract DNA, or they're trying to, for those who have done microbiology, they are trying to check microorganisms like Salmonella typhi. So those are basic science research. They are lab-based. The second type of research is known as clinical research. This kind of research is the one you conduct in humans, like real human beings. It involves studying interventions or outcomes in human patients. So, for instance, let's say you have this deadly disease, this deadly cancer, let's say breast cancer in women, and you already developed, or some bunch of scientists developed a drug that they believe can cure cancer. The kind of research that involves them testing these drugs on a select number of women to see if the drug will work is called clinical research. So, so that's what clinical research is. When you are trying to test the effect of either a drug, or it might not even be a drug, it might be a training or intervention. Let's say cervical cancer in women now. You want to teach, let's say you want to teach women between the ages of 30 and 40 years how to administer, how to do their pap smear themselves through the use of self-testing. Then you now organize a two-day training session to train them on how to do this. Then you now test whether that intervention actually improves their ability to do self-testing for cervical cancer. That's the kind of clinical research because the clinical research, well, essentially what I'm trying to say is that clinical research is essentially conducted in humans, not in the lab. The example I gave about HPV and cervical cancer, that's actually public health research, not clinical research. You will see why I said that soon. So public health research is the kind of research that is focused on a wider population. So we have public health students University of Ibadan, and basically what public health students do is rather than just focusing on patients in the hospital, what they do is they go out and they focus on a broader set of population. For example, if you look at the example I gave here, it says assessing breastfeeding practices among new mothers living in rural areas, or checking the prevalence of HIV stigma in rural areas, let's say in Ibadan, Nigeria. These are public health research because you are focusing on a broader set of population. For example, the population might be new mothers living in Lagos State or new mothers living in Ibadan. So those are like public health research is focused on a broader population. Just know that. Then qualitative research is the one that explores human behavior. And for example, I give some questions at the beginning of the presentation. For example, one example is, why do mothers avoid vaccination? Why is it that, despite the fact that we know that giving your child vaccines or immunizing them rather when they are young is going to help prevent some diseases like diphtheria, tuberculosis down the line, why do some mothers still avoid it? Might it be because they are scared of how much it costs? Might it be because they don't know the importance? So these questions that ask why, like trying to understand the reasons behind human behaviors, they tend to fall under qualitative research. This is very important. Can you take note of it? The translational research is the last type I'll be talking about today. So translational research essentially translates findings from the lab. If you remember what I said earlier about basic science research, so yeah, you are translating or transferring your findings from the laboratory to clinical practice. It's also known as from bench to bedside research. So if you see the example I gave here, it says turning a biomarker. This is a clinical term for certain substances that are secreted by the body in larger quantities when there's a cancer or something. So PSA here stands for prostate-specific antigen. The levels of PSA usually rises in prostate cancer. So PSA was actually discovered by people who were in the laboratory, so they were conducting basic science research. However, when they discovered PSA, they were now like, okay, fine. They've noticed that PSA tends to be produced by cells that are cancerous from the prostate gland, and they were now like, okay, how can we use this to actually help real patients? This is where translational research comes in. So PSA is usually used to screen for prostate cancer in patients. That's just an example of how what translational research is all about. It's about taking the findings from the laboratory and bringing them into clinical practice. So our second pop quiz today is about what we just learned now. So which of the following is the best example of clinical research based on what you've just learned? A, studying genetic mutations of sickle cell in the lab. B, testing whether a new drug lowers blood pressure in patients. C, investigating how healthcare workers feel about burnout. And D, accessing vaccination rates in the rural population. I would appreciate a response from somebody.
Excuse me, sir. Before someone responds, excuse me, please wait a little. Before someone responds, please. The attendance has been sent into the group chat. Make sure you take your attendance. Be closed at exactly 6 p.m., please. You have 20 minutes to take your attendance, so make sure you record your attendance. Thank you.
All right. So the answer is testing whether a new drug lowers blood pressure in patients.
Okay. To research, one thing you cannot escape is study designs as a researcher. You need to understand the different type of study designs, because even if you've spent 2 years in research or 10 years or 20 years as a researcher, there is no way you would not always need to use study designs. So as somebody who is new to research, please pay close attention to study designs. You will always keep on coming across study designs. Anytime you read a research paper, you notice there's introduction, there's methodology, there's result and discussion section. You see that your method section, this is where study design is very important. Like any research you are doing, you need to understand study design. So if everybody understands what I said at the beginning, I said research is about asking and answering questions. Now, if I ask a question that does smoking really cause lung cancer, that's my question. How do I answer it? And if you understand that, I also mentioned that research is about systematically going about answering questions that have been asked. The systematic part is where study designs come in. So study designs is a systematic way of conducting research or finding answers to research questions. That's what study designs are. So there are different types of study designs, and we'll be looking at some soon. Each of the studies, there's no perfect study design. Some are good for some certain studies, some are not very good. So each has its strengths and limitations. Excuse me, please.